81 days. That 81-day figure looks pretty good right now. 81 days. We'll talk a little bit about that in regards to decisions that are lined up and ready to be made here in the next few days concerning the start of college football. The NCAA announcing a 6-week plan. We'll talk about that very soon. Let's invite everyone on in to the Voice of College Football, our call-in show on a Monday night this week. My apologies to everybody that expects Sunday night. That has been our aim and our goal throughout the offseason, is to talk college football with you each and every Sunday night at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. But here we are on a Monday night, so thank you for being flexible. And once again, 81 days to week 0. 81 days, and again, with the news announced today, we can be a little bit more hopeful and confident that that 81-day mark is going to be hit. All right. MarkRogersTV, the Voice of College Football, please produce the show for us tonight. I rely on you during these call-in shows to produce the show, meaning you call in at 860-325-3687. You call in at 860-325-3687, and I'm wanting to get that 81-day mark in and to be hopeful about that. The only negative with the 81 days for me, besides it being 81 days to wait for college football, is that that marks the end of the summer. So the summer is basically yet to begin. It's just beginning, just getting warm and hot. I don't want to see it go. So the 81 days for college football is always a bit of a bittersweet time of year for me. Mostly sweet because of the love of college football, but at the same time, I hate to see the end of summer. And man, congratulations to the University of Michigan. Go Blue. Congratulations to the Wolverines. You haven't looked this good in years and years and years and years and years. Right now, for a second consecutive game, how the boys were able to do it 2 consecutive games in one night. Great conditioning program efforts by the Wolverines in particular, but also the Buckeyes, as Ohio State going down to defeat for now 2 consecutive times against Michigan. It's right on the Big Ten Network right now. Yes, Tom Brady and the boys in 1999 over the Buckeyes, 24-17. Comeback win in the Big House for the Maize and Blue and marching on to the Orange Bowl. And Alabama fans, you will remember that as Michigan down to Alabama in a classic Orange Bowl effort, 35-34. But before they could get there, they had to come back against the Buckeyes and score the game-winning touchdown with about 5 or 6 minutes left. So I caught the second half of the Ohio State-Michigan game circa 1999. And again, Wolverine fans, you are relegated right now to watch in the offseason and cherish the days of yore. Tom Brady at quarterback, evening his record against Ohio State to 1-1 after they had lost the 98 game at the Horseshoe. Right now is the 1985 game. I remember both very well. 1985 was watched at my grandma's house. Buckeyes had a 1-score lead late in the first half. Michigan, dominant second half performance. Jim Harbaugh lit them up 27-17, although Chris Carter did have a great catch to get the Buckeyes within 3 points midway through the fourth quarter. 1985, Michigan wins over Ohio State, and Michigan went on to the Fiesta Bowl. That Michigan team, in some respects, was the closest to winning a national championship of any since, except for the 1997 team, of course, split a national championship. But going all the way back to 1948, Michigan's had some great teams, many top 5 and 10 finishes. But that 1985 team probably was the highest ranked when all was said and done, at number 2 in the nation. Michigan beat Ohio State and then beat Nebraska in the Fiesta Bowl that year. 860-325-3687. Let's get to the news of the day. So first and foremost, before we get to all the controversy involving several football programs and football coaches in places like Clemson, South Carolina, out in Utah, in the Midwest to Iowa, saying things that they shouldn't say years and years ago, and I will address my perspective and thoughts on that. Let's talk about football on the field and what's being done right now that should pave the way to us watching football, hopefully in September. All right, Heather Dinich reporting, in order to kick off the college football season on time, coaches throughout the country could begin working with their players again as soon as July 6th. And required meetings and walkthroughs could start in mid-July if a proposed 6-week practice plan is approved by the NCAA later this month. The NCAA will vote on this proposed plan at its next meeting on June 17th. And it basically outlines the phasing in of college football, individual workouts going on throughout the country at most major schools. This is about trying to create, as Todd Berry, the executive director of the American Football Coaches Association, outlines, there is not going to be a perfectly equitable plan that's going to serve everyone perfectly and get everyone the same number of workouts and practices. But they would like to arrive at a place where it's fair. It's fair to a certain extent. Maybe school A will get 3 more practices than school B, but it will be generally fair. And it will begin with a 2-week period of time in which the players will be on the field monitored by the coaches. So what typically happens is that the players undergo individual workouts during the summer, and then fall camp begins roughly on August 1st, and they've got 4 weeks to prepare for game 1. What is going to happen here is that the players and coaches will have that conditioning walkthrough and playbook prep time for 2 weeks, but the coaches will be able to monitor that time. So in lieu of having spring practice, which was generally taken away from everyone to some degree, entirely taken away from probably 3/4 of the nation, and then the other 25% of the schools in the spring could only get in 3 to 5 workouts. That in lieu of that, there's a 2-week extension given to the coaches to be able to monitor their players' conditioning, gauge the level of conditioning for 2 weeks, get them reintroduced to the playbook, the schemes, the concepts on offense and defense and special teams, and also do a number of walkthroughs without helmets, without pads. And then I think there's a negotiation process in play regarding whether footballs can be used. Is that a big deal? Get the center of football so he can practice snapping. Is there an issue with that? Let's do that. Let's inflate a few footballs so the boys can throw it around a little bit during those 2 weeks. I don't see any harm in that. If they don't have helmets and pads on, I doubt if anybody's going to get hit. Okay, so that's for 2 weeks, and then it's full drills for 4 weeks, as is customary, leading into the season. So that means that teams will begin to practice as they typically do their fall camp practice style right at the beginning of August. And for those teams that play in week 0 in 81 days, that date would be July 24th for full workouts. And then we're back at it as we typically would be, as if the world was normal. We know that the world's not normal and may never be again. But for right now, we can pretend and cling to those things that are somewhat normal at this point. All right, we got our first call for tonight. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
MSU #1 fan.
MSU #1 fan. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Okay.
Yep. Going to get my 90s.
You'll be doing better when Ohio State finishes 0-12.
Yep, pretty much. I'm sure the maize and blue will agree with that. I'm just wondering that if they'll still have the Ireland game between Navy and Notre Dame.
I thought that in the last few weeks that it's been announced that will not be. Oh, yeah, I know for sure now. It's coming back to me. It's been moved to Navy's campus, the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It should be very interesting this year.
Sure.
With the new rules and how do they pick the schedules for the games? For the teams?
When are we getting the schedules?
How do they pick if Michigan State would send in 6 and they give a real tough schedule, that's how they do it, or?
Well, based on what we're talking right now, we're talking about the plan that's been proposed and will be voted on June 17th. If that plan's approved, then we're going to have a complete college football season.
Yes. Would the players not have to wear masks? They still did the BTN bus tour.
Would they not have to wear masks?
Yeah.
The players that I've seen from the videos that I've seen around the nation is that the players are currently wearing masks in the football facilities.
I wonder if we'll have the BTN bus tour.
Yeah, you're going to have to contact the Big Ten Network for that.
Oh. Yeah.
That's not really much of my concern at this point, the BTN bus tour.
I think I heard through the grapevine, the independent conference, they might be getting rid of it.
Yeah, it's not a conference. They're just independents. All right, so basically that's the outline. We just gave it in regards to players reporting, the 2-week conditioning and walkthrough and playbook prep time that is normally not supervised and monitored by the coaches, but of course they didn't have a spring practice. They didn't have anything. When I say nobody had spring practice, again, some teams had 3 to 5 practices, something in that range, but most teams had nothing. Some teams had something, but no spring practice generally. So that's kind of taking the place of trying to get the coaches prepared for a full-on August camp. And then that at that point, if things go well, once we hit August, then we've got football, at least on the field,
the call will start
like it's any other year. On the field, more to come concerning how many people are going to be in the stands. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's George in Portland, Mark.
Oh, I would know that voice anywhere. How you doing?
Man, I'm sitting under some gray skies here. It's ugly.
Gray skies at about 7:30 local
Gray,
time.
well, just gray from clouds, cloudy all day, and no rain, just nasty.
I cannot complain about the recent weather here. It's been hardly a cloud in the sky for days and days and days, and about 82, 85 every day. Beautiful. Love it.
Right. Hey, Mark.
Yep.
I'll be 60 years old in June, and it really feels like I'm 16. I'm 145 pounds. I'm 5'6",
okay,
and I can still wear the same clothes I wore in high school. I just never changed. I'm just eternally young. I never get sick. I've never had the freaking flu. So I just want to know something.
Yep.
Starting on Friday the 13th of March this year, all of a sudden, I'm the suspect one? Or are you telling me there's a law now that even if you're really healthy, you might be sick, and they'll let you know if you're sick or not?
Well, George, let's clarify a few things.
I'm missing something here.
When you run down your health status, God bless you, George. That's a great report. I'm glad to hear it. But very few are like you.
Right. I don't have any terminal diseases. I'm not dying of diabetes or cancer or anything.
Okay.
But I know the people that are, they're calling it coronavirus, and they're saying the healthy people might be the sick people. Let's make all the healthy people stay home and never go outside and wear a fucking mask. First of all, I'm offended about the whole word mask. What is this, like some TV show shit or what? What the fuck is going on here?
You're talking about being asymptomatic, George. That's what you're referring to,
right? Everybody believes what they see on TV. The TV said, oh, everybody run. And everybody ran? Oh, my God. I'm alone in the world. I'm the only guy that sat here and said it's just a TV jerk-off thing. They have taken over the world. We're all doomed. And like you said, what are you going to do? Quarantine a player that's perfectly healthy for 14 days because some test that's wrong 80% of the time said so? Give me a break. Life is over as we know it. And now, all of a sudden, we're concerned about black rights, too. On the heels of it, where we can all gather hundreds of thousands of us together. Come on. It's a psych op, 100%.
Well, that is a joke.
The CIA and
yes,
I'm just saying. I wanted someone to say it out loud one time because we all agree anyway.
Yes, that's a joke in regards to all of a sudden. This was the worst thing in the world. The coronavirus was the worst thing in the world. It dominated the headlines and the news programs and everything. We all know that. It dominated. And suddenly, one day, it all stopped. And we couldn't get any information about it. Didn't much matter. People were out protesting, rubbing elbows, and, of course, swinging all sorts of lead pipes at each other and so forth. And
don't open your restaurant bar.
We're not going
don't
to
open
get
your
into
restaurant
social.
bar.
George, I have had enough social discussion, I'll call it that, to be kind, enough social input of the issues out there and dealt with enough conversations in the last 3 weeks to let the life out.
I know you have.
So we're going to talk some college football here.
That's why I called.
All right. What do you got for me?
Let's say no, there's no major catastrophes with football teams and coronavirus. I would still pick Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, and whoever that other team is, Clemson, I guess.
Okay.
And just see if anybody can upseat one of those. Can anybody get in? Can Georgia take Georgia out? Or can Georgia take Alabama out? Or can Florida take Alabama out? Or Clemson take out? It's fun. I can't wait. I hope it works.
Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia. Those are your four?
Yeah, I think they deserve to be the top dogs right now. Who else? Did I miss somebody?
I don't know. Those are the four teams you gave me.
Yeah, I don't think I missed anybody. Now, maybe Florida can pull it off. I think they will with General Kyle Trask at the helm.
Maybe
but,
Florida. You were talking a lot more confident about your Gators a few months ago.
Florida doesn't have 34 5-stars or whatever Georgia has. We have like 3 of them, or 4 of them, or 5 of them. And they're all through the transport portal. So, oh no, we got that new guy this year, the number 1 defensive player. Forget his name right now. Oh my God. Yeah, I love college football. I would give up a piece of my body, a pound of flesh or anything, if we could just have a real football season and life go back to normal. I'd just give anything.
Well, hitting the skills, George, at $145, I don't know if you can afford to lose any of that.
I was going to say my left testicle. I've had 6 kids. I'm done.
I hope so. You've done some work there, George.
I know. There's a lot of good football channels out there, but I can only do like the 4 or 5 I know. Who has enough time? But to whoever finds you or the few other channels I found, you fulfill a great need in people's lives because we love college football.
I hope so.
Above all things.
I hope I'm
It's the ultimate, man. It's the ultimate fun game that we all ever got to play with kids that weren't quite pro yet. They weren't quite all bought off. You just can't totally control a college football team. Somebody will make a play they're not supposed to make or something by accident. It's wonderful. I love it.
Should be fun. Should be fun. So can we mark you down for those 4 teams, or are you still going to think it over?
Yes, yes. If anybody gets in beside those 4 teams, then somebody knocked somebody off. And I love it. That's the thrill of the game. I hope it's Florida. I wish Miami could beat Clemson so Kyle Trask could play against De'Aaron King in the playoffs. That would be my fantasy scenario.
Well, let's have Miami knock off a few other teams before they get anywhere close to Clemson.
They would pretty much have to go undefeated, maybe lose 1 game, but beat Clemson. And then those 2 kids that played at Manville High, Kyle Trask and De'Aaron King. Kyle Trask never got to start. They could play against each other. That'd be wonderful. That's a good storyline. That's Hollywood.
Well, George,
De'Aaron King started every game above Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask never started after the 8th grade, but
right.
His coaches said they're going to look like the biggest fools of all time when Kyle Trask gets in the NFL Hall of Fame, but they couldn't start him over De'Aaron King because he's just too sensational. He'll just win every game for you. They wanted to, but they couldn't. They had the 2 best quarterbacks on the same team. It's a good story.
All right, George, I'm going to answer some of these questions that are coming in, but I'm going to let you know that I did rate that Kyle Trask as the best quarterback in the SEC.
Well, yeah. He probably deserves that moniker right now, but this year is what really matters. This year is the year people are going to find out he's not a kid. He's not that nice little boy he looks like. He wants to win. He will will the team to win. He will carry them on his back. He loves to win. He almost beat LSU and Georgia last year.
Hey, George.
I love
else?
that. All right. No.
Okay.
I gave you my top 4. We'll see what happens.
Okay. You're going straight chalk. Boring top 4, George.
And please, dear God, don't believe anything you see on TV. Don't do it. Or the phone. It's all a lie.
That's one of the smartest things you've said, George.
Love you guys.
Have a good night.
Talk to you later.
Our man, George. George has commented to the channel more than anyone. I can say that without even thinking about it. It is without question a fact. I would love to have a counter to where I could list the top 10 commenters to the channel. YouTube is not even giving me comment statistic anymore. There used to be a section in YouTube, so I can go to my analytics, any YouTuber can, and look at all the statistics regarding the numbers of views and duration of time people are watching, and all sorts of metrics. And YouTube used to tell us how many comments we received over a certain period of time. And I can no longer get that statistic. Anyway, MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mr. Mark Rogers, this is Ballard Sports Media. How you doing?
Hey, Ballard. I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Just enjoying the summer and everything. And, of course, being a football fan and everything, just hoping we can get a season. Do you agree with the whole setup schedule that they have in place? Do you think that, they should extend it? Should they change some things up? Because I really like the whole, what's the day, like June 8th, I think, when they want to get players back on campuses. I mean, is that too early or too late? Because it looks like things are getting better. It looks like that might be the right time, but I'm not really sure. What do you think?
So first of all, Ballard, check out a calendar. June 8th is when?
It's like
today. June 8th is today.
Oh, crap, that's today.
Today's June 8th.
My bad.
If you're talking about the plan that we just were outlining based on the article that was posted on ESPN.com by Heather Dinich, I was outlining what is going to be voted on next week. If you go back to countless live streams that we've had over the last few months, ever since this coronavirus hit and wiped out spring football, and people have asked me, what are these teams and coaches going to need to prepare for the season? If you look at the dates, now I didn't give specific dates, of course. I didn't have a calendar in front of me, but I gave early July, mid-July, late July. I went through the whole process of what this was going to look like. That is it. I've been saying that for months. I've said they will need a full 4 weeks of August camp, as they typically do, but because they did not have spring practice, they will need about 2 to 3 weeks to run through conditioning, be able to monitor the players, see how conditioned the football team is, go through all the things in a very condensed period of time that they typically get done during spring practice, like implementing the offense, the defense, getting players comfortable with the playbook, terminology changes, and again, conditioning. And that's exactly what's outlined in this plan.
Yeah. And then another thing, of course, being a Bama fan and, just someone in general trying to be a sportscaster and everything, I keep up with the news. I saw where a couple Bama players got tested positive for the virus the other day. Now, I don't think they've mentioned who got tested positive, but when you look at it and the fact that we're so close to August and September, that really worries me, that the fact that we're having players not only getting tested, because you could test negative, but they get tested positive, especially this time of the year, when we should have media days in a month and then, fall camp and everything. But, I really am starting to truly have a feeling that we might not get a season because we're seeing positive tests on players for the virus. So
that's the big concern, because once they start to test positive, it's not necessarily about so much just the safety concerns about the players, because I got to think that most of the players that are going to test positive are either asymptomatic or are not going to get very sick at all over this. But because some will, and then also there are aged people surrounding the football team, the coaches themselves, the assistant coaches. I wonder what the average age is of a head coach in FBS football. It's got to be 50, 55 years old. Whatever it is.
Right, maybe even a little younger, in like your 40s or something, with maybe a guy like Jeremy Pruitt or whoever.
Sure. So regardless of whatever it is, it's considerably more than the projected and average health of the players and their susceptibility to contracting it and it being more of a major deal. So that is still a huge concern. Iowa reported today that 1 out of their 237, so they must have 237 people, of course, about 100 are football players. So coaches, medical staff, probably anybody who comes around the football team in regards to sports information people, the athletic department, they probably tested everyone who's involved in football to any degree, and they had 1 test positive out of 237. So that's a great number right there. They can quarantine that individual and then move on from there. But we heard about those Alabama players. We heard about 3 or 4 at Oklahoma State. And there's been scattered other reports already without anyone hitting campus up until just a couple days ago.
Yeah, and again, whether like let's say they test all the players, right? Now, I'm not exactly sure how many players on average are on a college team. I think NFL is like 53, but it's got to be a lot more than that. But let's say you test every player.
105 on the roster.
105. Okay, so you test about 100, 105 players, whatever. Not all of them test positive, but quite a few do, or whatever. You still got to take into precaution. What about the other players? Could they get it? They might, because maybe they've been around the other players, although this off season really hasn't been the case. But, you got to take into consideration. We got to be really careful and worried about what could happen with the players that don't have it now could get it potentially going forward. So it's just getting kind of crazy out there, I guess.
Well, I don't know that it's getting crazy. Other things are so much crazier in life right now. I don't necessarily know that this is crazy, but it has the potential. Again, what you're talking about is the same thing that I was talking about, that I love the plan. And again, it's the timing of it is almost to a T exactly what I talked about months ago, several times. You can go through all these call-in shows, and I went over it I don't know how many times because I was asked about it, of course, every show, rightfully so.
Right.
But you're hitting upon the one possible wrench in the whole situation. If we have, take your football team, whomever they are, if they have 18 players test positive, and then there are connections made to, okay, they came in contact with everybody else on the football team, then what are they going to do? Quarantine everybody for 14 days, and let's say it's 10 days before their first game.
Right. You would have to postpone that, and potentially, who knows what else happens with the rest of the season.
Yes.
I would say.
So that's our potential problem. And with 130 FBS football teams, the likelihood of it happening is unfortunately rather high.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to call up and I just wanted to call up and comment on that and enjoying the show. I always love your content and have a good one. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Ballard. Have a good one. Yeah, on the Big Ten Network tonight, I was reliving 1999 and 1985, which I don't know that we have any Michigan fans on with us right now. I don't know where Panero 5 Puro is, but we got Cheryl and NCIS Fanatic 21, who always does a nice job of holding me accountable on the dates and the scores and so forth. And again, I nailed it. Nebraska 27-23, a Michigan win over the Huskers in the 85 Fiesta Bowl. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. It's McD Sports Sport. How are you doing?
McD, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm calling up for a few reasons. I want to say a few things. One, to piggyback on the last caller, I want to be concerned about the whole coronavirus. If the whole team gets wiped out, I wouldn't really be concerned about that until it happens. I personally think every team's going to play 12 games this year. I think the season will start on time, even though personally I would still like to see it pushed back 30 days just to be safe. But with the NCAA plan that you just said, basically, I do think that I don't see a reason why they would not go ahead and pass that.
Nick D, here's my analogy for you. You're not going to be concerned with the coronavirus affecting college football until it actually happens. So let's take, let's say Uncle Jim eats nothing but chocolate and McDonald's every day and has been eating like that for 30 years and he weighs 450 pounds. Are we not going to be concerned with Uncle Jim until he has a heart attack?
No, I will be concerned about Uncle Jim.
And the only reason I say that, McD, is that I don't want to overblow this coronavirus thing either. Believe me, I have lived a very balanced life, and I've not been that concerned about it. But the problem is the way it's being dealt with is that if one player contracts it and is tested positive, then that particular player, okay, if they catch these players that are testing positive once they walk on campus the first time, then that's sure. They can grab the player, boom, player X tested positive. This was day one on campus. Pull him out of here, quarantine him for 14 days. Okay, let's monitor and interview him to ask where he's been, who he's been in contact with. Hopefully he's coming in from out of state. He hasn't really been in contact with anybody on the football team. Okay, we got him out of the way. He's out of here. We'll bring him back in 14 days. But the problem is going to be once all these players are together, and let's say we're in the middle of fall camp, and all of a sudden somebody's out somewhere and they contracted from somewhere else, they bring it in, and then we got 18 players contracted, and then we got to quarantine the whole team because that's the standard protocol, is to quarantine everybody who's been in contact with the individual. And then you got a big issue.
That is true. But one thing that I saw was it's not 14 days anymore. I think it's a 10 or 11-day quarantine. So we don't have to worry about 2 weeks.
11 versus 14.
So basically, I wouldn't really worry about that until it happens and see what happens. But Mark, I don't know if you saw the news today from the quarterback. His name slips me. That Maryland's going after. The 5-star that Maryland's going after. His name slips me. Caleb Williams.
Oh, yeah.
5-star quarterback. I don't know if you saw the announcement today, but he's making the announcement July 4th, and his final 3 teams are LSU, Oklahoma, and Maryland.
Do you think it's too late for me to warn him about Mike Locksley now? Should I get in contact with the young man?
Why did you hate Mike Locksley so much?
I'm just kidding. I knew that would hit a nerve. So where's this kid from? I know I've heard the name. We've talked about him. I've had a few commentators, few guests come on and talk about him, but I don't follow recruiting well. He's obviously from the Maryland area.
DC. He's from DC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get the hometown look.
Yeah, basically.
Oklahoma, LSU, Maryland. Which one doesn't fit? Oklahoma, LSU, Maryland. Boy, Mike Locksley's going to have to do a sales job. Or this kid's going to...
He only picked one off more, John. He only picked one off more, John. I'm not concerned about so much LSU because I've seen Locksley do it before against that Orgeron. So with Raheem Jarrett.
If you get him, wow. Then there's some in that program.
Yeah. I think you got to start making Mike Locksley jokes for sure.
I will suspend the Mike Locksley jokes if they sign Caleb Williams. But, of course, that's not going to come until December. So I've got a full football season to pick on poor Mike Locksley. Unless they somehow, if they go to a bowl game, that will also be Mike Locksley jokes.
I'm telling you, Mike Locksley knows what he's doing. I'm telling you. Just give him time. He knows what he's doing. I mean, I had the conversation with you before with the coaches in Maryland, but I want to talk about one other thing, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I have an issue with the University of Georgia. And here's my issue with the University of Georgia. Kirby Smart is my issue with the University of Georgia. I think Kirby Smart is running a very toxic program at the University of Georgia. I couldn't believe the reports from Jake Fromm a few days ago. Yeah. And you can't tell me Kirby didn't know about that. I think Kirby knew about that. So I think in a few years Kirby Smart will be fired, not because of wins or losses, because that program would be very toxic, and they'll just have to bring in someone that can make it not as toxic.
Now, I did not take a deep dive into the Jake Fromm situation. I just saw the text messages. I read a little bit about it and so forth, but I didn't go into the chronology of the whole situation. Did he not make these remarks via text recently?
He made them in 2019.
Oh, he made them. Okay.
Yeah. So he played a whole year at Georgia with these texts.
When in 2019?
March
of 2019. Okay, that's what I didn't have. I didn't have that fact. So because of the nature of the text message dealing with guns, I connected it to the protests and the rioting and thought that he made it very recently.
No, it was last year, March 2019.
Okay. Who leaked those text messages? That's what I want to know.
Some chick that I think Jake Fromm had a relationship with or something. I mean,
the woman that he sent them to.
Correct.
Okay, so I've got a few issues here. Well, first of all, you just need to let's put the comments aside because we don't need to have any kind of debate or discussion as to the appropriateness of the comments. They're ridiculously awful. So we'll not even need to deal with that. I've been dealing with enough of those kind of discussions this week.
I don't want to get into the comments
to deal with that. But okay. Well, it just goes. I will make this comment to everybody out there that you need to be trusting, and I mean trusting of the individual that you text. That's the lesson in all this right there. You got to know who you're texting and how trustworthy they are. And if they're not, then you don't. Those things shouldn't be stated anyway. That's not a comment on condoning the statements. That's a comment on a wise choice of friends and who you are willing to kind of unveil yourself to.
Absolutely, I agree. But it's not just that's my issue with Kirby Smart. He picked Jake Fromm over Justin Fields.
Yeah,
how? I mean, you can't tell me that whole locker room sat there and thought Jake Fromm was better than Justin Fields. I look at the DeAndre Baker incident. He came from Georgia.
Yeah.
Are they hiding things on DeAndre Baker that happened at Georgia? How about Hollyman, who Kirby actually handled that correctly. I'll give him credit on that for kicking him off the team. I look at Georgia, and I just think they're having a very toxic program there. I mean, granted, I know Georgia fans got tired of Mark Richt, but at least Mark Richt, you knew you weren't getting a toxic program. I really think Georgia has a very toxic program. I do think that, and whoever just said DeAndre Baker was innocent guilty, I agree. But I look at Georgia, it's just toxic, Mark. It's just toxic. I mean, I like to see how they act this year. I still think that team is a playoff team, or at least a playoff contender going into the season. As I said, I think they're clearly the best team in the SEC East, and they're not even close. And no one's even close. As I said, Florida's closer to Tennessee than they are to Georgia. But I do think that overall, it is a very toxic program there at Georgia. I think it's going to fall flat on its head with Kirby Smart getting ran out the building.
McD, people do the right thing for two different reasons, basically. Some people do the right thing because that's their character. They do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And even if nobody's watching, they do the right thing, whether that's giving, whether that's being kind, whatever that is, fill in the blank for the situation. A lot of people, fortunately, in this world do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. There are other people who do the right thing because they know it's going to help them. They know that they stay clean because they know it's going to preserve their job, make them money, put them in right standing with the right people. So they don't have it in their heart to do the right thing, but they at least are smart enough to know, hey, I want to survive in this situation. I want to make money. I want to get the next job, whatever it is, and they do the right thing. If this situation and this culture of what's going on currently in the nation doesn't shake a few college coaches up to do the right thing, or depending on your perspective, the politically right thing to do, then nothing will. Because there's, I think these coaches, and we've seen it down through the years, they get a bit headstrong because they have so much authority and they become untouchable. Nobody tells them no. They get paid more than anybody in the state, and they think they are bulletproof. But then something like this happens and they find out otherwise, and these kind of things are going to happen. Well, we've seen it at Iowa, Utah, and Clemson here just in the last few days. So these coaches are going to have to be, if in a situation in the future, if you are correct, and I'm saying if, that Kirby Smart knew about the Jake Fromm text messages during the football season last year or prior to, then in the future, he is going to have to deal with that situation differently.
Absolutely. And who knows, he might not know about them, but don't tell me, no one can tell me with a straight face that Kirby Smart, and I'm sure he knew Jake Fromm very well. I don't think anybody can tell me with a straight face that those text messages did not surprise Kirby Smart. I mean, that's what I'm trying to get to. I don't think Kirby Smart. I think Kirby Smart's a good coach. I think he knows what he's doing, but I just think something is off there at Georgia, culture-wise, and I think it's going to fall flat on its face probably 3 to 5 years from now. But just want to give my perspective on that, Mark. Thanks for my call. They don't fit for 15 minutes. I want to let someone else hop on. But thanks for taking my call, Mark, and go Turks for making a bowl game and getting Caleb Williams.
No Mike Locksley jokes if they make a bowl game. That was my promise to McD. That if Mike Locksley can get to a bowl game, or because that's a long wait for McD to have to endure the Mike Locksley jokes until they reach a bowl game, which would be them sneaking in, I'm sure, with the 6th win, the last game of the season. I will also say that if they're on their way to making a bowl game, 4-2, 5-3 throughout the season, that I will suspend the Mike Locksley jokes. Or if they sign this 5-star, but again, that's not going to happen until December. Wow, we got a lot of stuff to get to at Iowa, Utah, and Clemson. We also have Nebraska wide receiver J.D. Spielman in the transfer portal. Now, back in March, J.D. Spielman left the program and went back home to Minnesota, which also means at that point, depending on when that happened in March, that he left school and went back to his home in Minnesota to stay with his family due to mental health. Not that he had a mental health issue, but just for his mental health. This was the reason given at the time. So now here we are in June, and today J.D. Spielman, wide receiver at Nebraska, their best player coming back on offense, especially at that position, has entered the transfer portal. Now, based on his move to go back home, if there's any connection there that's a lasting indication, then PJ Fleck, I'm sure, is mighty interested in J.D. Spielman coming to the University of Minnesota. J.D. Spielman is 3rd in the history of Nebraska football in yards receiving. Now, let's put that into context. Though mighty impressive, no Nebraska receiver outside of Irving Fryer would be anywhere close to the top 10 in Nebraska receiving, even though that program was dominant from around 1970 to the late 90s. Even made a national championship game in 2001. We all know Nebraska was built on offensive line play and running the football. So the wide receiver play, although decent to good to great at times, did not rack up the kind of numbers. So let's put the numbers into context, but still J.D. Spielman, a top 3 receiver in the history of Nebraska's program in terms of receiving yards, and he is available in his home's in Minnesota. Apparently, he went back to Minnesota for mental health considerations back in March. PJ Fleck, bingo! I would like to address the Davos Swinney. And yes, Mike, thank you so much. Good to see you. Cheryl, of course, good to see you as well. As always, Haniru 5 Piru, I was asking about you earlier in the night. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the salute, as always. And again, you got 2 big wins over the Buckeyes just tonight, 1985 and 1999. Brought back many, many memories. Harbaugh and Brady at quarterback in those respective games. All right, we'll get to Dabo in a minute. Also want to address this Utah situation that seems a bit curious.
Start at the beat.
Iowa as well. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Kevin. How you doing?
Hey, Kevin. How are you?
Hey, good, man. Yeah, I was wanting to get in on, you mentioned that you had upcoming topics like Clemson, so I wanted to make sure I got in on that.
We are doing a Clemson live stream, hopefully on Sunday night. A full Clemson.
Oh, okay, that's what you're referring to?
Yes.
Oh, okay, right on. Oh, well, I'll definitely make sure I'm there. Okay, good deal.
What we're
good deal
for. So we'll release the time here as soon as I can pull everyone together. We'll have Pigskin Pete on, Bobby Durkins, and DeAndre to talk Clemson football, possibly Ryan Cantor, who writes for Shaping the Southland.
Oh, wonderful. Well, hey, let me just say really quick, Mark, since we were just talking about Jake Fromm and what's going on down there in Georgia, you know, it's really terrible that we live in an era where people will save conversations just to use as ammunition in the future.
But when it comes to social media, I am so incredibly sick and tired, and I'm being very clean in my rhetoric and kind by saying sick and tired. I could describe it much more passionately than that, but I will say sick and tired of people on social media being judge and jury, being in this self-righteous position, and I'm going to damn everyone to hell because they made some little mistake here and there. And sometimes the mistakes are huge. Let's not, many times the so-called mistakes are still under investigation, are still under review. We don't have all the facts. And other times, I'm with you. There's a debate as to whether, was this really wrong? Maybe this is just a matter of opinion. And, oh man, I was the target of it, and I'm not playing the martyr myself here. I think just about all of us are, and especially if you put yourself on a platform like I have, that when all this blew up about 10 days ago in the aftermath of George Floyd, I had 3 people on Twitter call me a racist. I had said nothing. They called me a racist because up to that point on Twitter, I had said nothing. So that made me a racist.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah. That's just absurd. I mean, it's you know, I don't get so, I mean, I can understand the social media mob mentality of okay, let's gang up on like this person. Let's, you know, like it's just I just understand it because I know there's that many stupid people out there that would do that kind of thing. That won't look at information and formulate ideas themselves. They have to see what everybody else is doing and then just go off of what they say because it's the mob mentality just digitally. Yes, they're weak. Just to comment really quick on something different, the 6-week plan. I really like that plan. I think that's solid. Like you summed it up earlier. It's a good time frame as far as the players will have enough time to get conditioned. You're basically, instead of 4 weeks or 5 weeks of training camp, you know, you're giving them an extra week or so, which would have been spring practice. So you can go through your installations. Go through your you know, just your pad or just your shells. and then work your way up to the full strength. But I wonder how much contact coaches are going to be actually doing in those 6 weeks. I mean, are they gonna release them? Guns a-blazing, go try to go full pads as soon as they can, or do they know those extra couple weeks are actually going to kind of might actually take a toll? I mean, guys coming in not in shape. That's how injuries happen. I wonder how much they're actually going to be hitting hard and stuff. If they're going to do it more than normal or less than normal.
Well, it's a great question, because right now we got a situation where in the past every team would have had a full spring practice, then they would have had some time off, and then would come back with individual workouts that obviously don't involve hitting, and then they would have hit the practice field on August 1st, but you would have as a head football coach, a very clear indication of where your team stood physically. Now you've got this 2 or 3 week assessment to get the conditioning down. Actually, the one advantage in this is that they're going to have the direct monitoring of the coaches leading right into fall camp, as opposed to not having that in the past. So if these dates play out, for a team that's playing week 0, they use these dates of July 24th being the date in which they start practicing in full, July 6th being the date that they show up and start conditioning and playbook prep and all of that. The coaches monitoring, so that's close to 3 weeks prior to July 24th. So, the coaches don't have all that they would have gathered during spring practice, but they've got the more immediate look at the team going into fall camp that they wouldn't have had before.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and also I think that's good for as far as as coronavirus goes. I mean, they're having all that time to the coaches at the university. These guys shouldn't be traveling around everywhere. They shouldn't be going a whole bunch of places. They're just going to be there. So, I think it's good from that aspect as well. I mean, these coaches, they're going to have their eyes on them for quite a while before the season starts, in some shape or form. And I don't think the guys are going to be coming in, late July for training camp, fresh off of a summer vacation, from somewhere exotic. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that.
So I wanted to hit on that as well, because you're looking at, to a certain extent, we live in a free society. You can only limit these kids so much in a sense as to where they can and can't go. I don't know how far or how restrictive a football staff can get in regulating where these players go. But I think the strong message would be, regardless of what we officially can do you want to be a successful football team this year? Well, if you want to be a successful football team, then we have to restrict where you can go. Because as soon as somebody tests positive, then we have to make all sorts of connections in terms of where they've been and who they've been associated with. And one player on the team may turn into 18 players on the team. Well, they're going to be constantly tested. But anyway, to your point, wow, I don't know what the coaches can officially do in a free society to limit the players' freedom of travel versus what they're just going to try to implement to say, hey, let's be smart about this. We have goals this football season. We want to play games and win. So let's be tight as a team. Can we suck it up from the first week of August until our bowl game? Can we just suck it up and be together?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't think they should. I'm not advocating that the coaches should, prevent them from doing anything. I think because when would the players arrive on campus if the 6-week plan was implemented? Like you said, July. When did you say in July?
For the week 0 teams, it was to start fall camp on July 24th and be together for the first date on July 6th. So for everybody else, most teams, that would be a week later. So July 13th and then July 30th.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Be together for a full camp.
Well, the players shouldn't. I mean, realistically, how many players are really going to go outside the university, general area, and in that time? If they're going to be reporting for conditioning and all that stuff, July 13th, training camp starts July 30th. I mean, I don't see them going very far. As long as they stay local and they stay amongst. I guess you could say stay amongst their team who they know are healthy. Then I think that I think that's kind of the mentality is the coaches are going to be encouraging these guys. Hey, stay amongst each other. Like you're all tested. None of you have it. Let's keep it that way. Stay with each other. Don't go anywhere crazy. And if they do, they have the freedom to. But it's going to limit their ability to play in the future. And that's the ownership on them. So then it's the same thing with drugs. The coaches can't stop players from going to parties, but it's on the player to not do the drugs, so they don't get suspended and miss a few games.
And
it's going to be on the players.
And it's a good point that the rest of the student body will not be reporting to campus until like the first week of September. So they'll have the first full month together with nobody else on campus. Most universities have suspended on-campus summer school, so that's all online. And maybe even, I've got a daughter in college, and a lot of those classes, even for the fall, have been moved to an online capacity, especially if they're larger class type situations. So that's even going to be restricted to a certain extent.
I'm really not too concerned about coronavirus in this college football season. I'm more like what you brought up. I'm more concerned about some of the older coaches. That's where I'm really concerned, and maybe any players with any kind of prior medical conditions. But other than that, otherwise, if the players want to play, they should play. Just let's do this. Let's spot the damn ball.
I'm with you. I am with you.
All right, well, I appreciate it, Mark. I'll hop off and let other people hop on, but I appreciate your time, man. Thank you. God bless.
God bless, and thank you so much for the call. Jeff Lynn, haven't heard from you in a while. Good to see you there. Great to be back. You must feel great. College football interest for the 2020 season is picking up. Thanks for hanging in there. Yeah, I have been. Somebody mentioned to me the other day, they said, you just kind of kept going. Regardless of what's going on out there, you just kind of kept the nose down and grinded away straight ahead college football content. Yes, we have. $28 AD 28. Basically what I was thinking of there, I don't know who I was talking to, but I noticed that we had two conference champions on the top shelf, and so I just thought I would switch one out and we'd have all three of the five major conferences represented on the top shelf. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
How's it going, Mark? It's Tyler P. here. And I was just calling. I was calling about, Florida, but then a Maryland fan came on here. Forget about Maryland. They're not getting Caleb Williams. LSU's already got him. But anyway, I'm asking you, why is Florida getting all this hype?
Florida's getting all this hype because people are always looking for somebody to challenge the best team in that conference or division to try to have something to talk about. So that's part of it. They have narrowed. So Dan Mullen's doing a nice job. They have fielded top 10 teams the last 2 years and won 10 and 11 games the last 2 years. They have cut the margin between the two teams from 5 touchdowns to 2 or 3 scores to a touchdown last year. So people are seeing a trend there. And then a lot of people do believe that Dan Mullen is a better coach, in-game coach and developer of talent than Kirby Smart. So they're giving Florida a chance, a reasonable chance.
Yeah, I see what the Dan Mullen stat against top 10 teams are, and I tend to disagree with Maine, with most people.
Well, you gotta you gotta figure that during that stay at Mississippi State, though, he was not fielding top 10 teams there, and nobody really has in history. So he was facing a lot of top 10 Alabama, LSU, and Auburn teams, and then whomever they might face in the Eastern Division. And it's not like he's fielding top 10 teams that are losing to top 10 teams.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just looking at the Georgia roster, and this is potentially one of the Georgia's best rosters they've ever had. I mean, you got to look at their recruiting. Yeah, their recruiting average is like 2.6 or something crazy like that. And Alabama is sitting there at like 2.2. And then you got to look at Florida's. Florida's is sitting there at like, what, 11.2? So based on recruiting, Georgia's done a lot better. And you got to look at what Kirby Smart has done in a short amount of time. I mean, he's only been a coach for what, like 4 years? This is going to be his 5th season. So
he
turned that Georgia team.
I'm sorry, you're talking about the 4 classes that are on the roster, is what you're talking about, right?
So I was like saying about the recruiting. Georgia's obviously out recruited pretty much everybody except for Alabama. This past year, they had the #1 class. I believe they had the #1 class in 2018, but I don't really think that matters because Justin Fields plays for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But yeah, I mean, but I mean, still getting out recruited by what, 4 other SEC teams, including Texas A&M. What's up with that?
Well, he's going to share the talent in Florida probably more so than Texas and Texas A&M do in Texas. No, it's a question. It certainly makes sense because if you go back to the mid-2000s, I've looked at Urban Meyer's classes at Florida, and he had top 3 to 4 classes stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, and then you got to look at 2010 through 2013, they had an average recruiting class of 4.5, and they went 30 and 21. So I mean, it is what it is there. I mean, you see what these Florida fans tell you. Kirby Smart can't win with good talent, but you see Florida back then had arguably even better talent than Georgia did, and only went 30 and 21. But that's all about all I really wanted to talk about. I think the Dogs are going to beat Florida this year for 4th year in a row. I mean, they've beaten them 102-41 these past 3 years. This year it's going to be 31-17. But thanks for taking my call, Mark, and you have a good one, man.
I appreciate it. You make total sense with the talent gap difference on the roster. I get it. Have a good one. Yeah, so I'm making a case for Florida in regards to what the national media and the fans are trying to build up in regards to hype that the Gators have a shot against Georgia. I think it's a reasonable shot. It's not 50-50. I've stated this a few times that if you take everything into consideration, I would think that Florida has a 25 to 30% chance of beating Georgia, which is typically the head-to-head is going to be the key in winning the division. Of course, if you win the head-to-head, then the other team has to be 2 games better in conference play to override that to win the division. So the game is going to decide the division unless these teams are worse than we anticipate. And the Eastern Division winner, like it was so many times during roughly the end of the Tebow Urban Meyer era, going into the Kirby Smart domination of the East the last 3 years, during that section of time when you had Missouri winning back-to-back, when you had some marginal Florida teams winning under Jim McElwain, winning the Eastern Division, and then a couple times when Georgia was involved with Mark Richt, that you actually had teams that lost the key head-to-head matchup still win the division because the teams weren't very good and you didn't have 7-1, 8-0 conference teams winning the SEC Eastern Division. But the division is back to a certain level thanks to Georgia, and now Florida and maybe Tennessee trailing trying to keep up respectability versus the SEC Western Division. And the East has played better against the West than it had been for quite some time there. Most importantly, out of the other three situations involving race relations at Iowa, Utah, and Clemson is, of course, Dabo Swinney, because he's running the best of the three programs and because he is the head football coach. I'm going to give props to Pigskin Pete. I checked out only about 8 to 9 minutes did I have time to check out his show right before I came on. He played the video of the Dabo Swinney comments concerning the situation of the assistant coach who said the N-word. But there's context to every situation. There is context. It is completely different when somebody calls someone the N-word versus when somebody just uses it in reference to something else. It's still not good. It's still not acceptable, but uses it in reference to something else maybe going on. And then in this case, as was explained by Dabo Swinney, if he's being accurate and truthful, and I have no reason to believe that he's not, basically what happened was that particular coach repeated what was said to him. Still not good, but a much different situation when you're repeating something that was yelled at you versus something that you yourself is saying. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. It's Reasonable Gump.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, man. Just saw you online here, like this for an unscheduled live stream, so decided to call in and chat for a bit.
We tried to show up on Sunday nights, and we couldn't get there last night, so here we are.
Right. Well, I heard what you said to a guy two callers ago about how apparently even you haven't escaped the social media outrage. And I want to say that's awful, man. I mean, I don't know you in real life. I'm trying to make an assumption that you're at least somewhat similar in real life as you are on your show here. I mean, the people would say that just because you're not jumping on the whole world is on fire brigade right now. You're not the only one, but I mean, I've been hit by it too. So I know how it probably made you feel. It's just wrong in so many ways. That this is what it's come to right now.
It's horrible to have your character attacked when there's nothing to substantiate it. That's a horrible thing. It's horrible to be accused of anything that you didn't do, and it's horrible to be accused or have your character attacked when there is nothing to justify it.
No.
And this is the day and age that we're in, and I'm only one of millions.
You are. I mean, man, when the whole Dabo thing happened, what actually was really nice to see were, some of the players get on there and defend him. If there's one coach that has done a better job of inspiring loyalty and just, for lack of a better word, love from all the people in his program, it's Dabo. He's managed to, for the most part, keep a remarkable continuation of all his staff members. He doesn't usually have to deal with, replacing coordinators every other year, like, other big time programs, like, Nick Saban seems to graduate his coordinators to head coaching jobs, every other year, even every year it seems. Dabo doesn't generally have that problem. Whether people want to say that's because they're just trying to get away from Saban, or if he's trying to shoo them out to get them better opportunities, that's a big. But anyone who knows anything about college football can just listen to the guy talk. That Dabo's a really good guy, and it was really awesome to see his players get on there and defend him from all this nonsense. But what really broke my heart was Well, as you already know, I'm in the military. You can probably take a wild guess at where I stand on the kneeling during the national anthem thing.
I can.
But putting that aside, when Drew Brees made his comments, especially in an age where everyone is trying to say that everyone has a right to their opinion, not only did he have absolutely no allies anywhere in the media, which, by the way, Drew Brees is one of the best, people of America that we've ever had.
Absolutely.
He had basically no enemies.
Yes.
He donated literally millions of his dollars to help with Katrina and stuff. This guy says he thinks people should be standing the national anthem to support the troops. I mean, all of a sudden he's probably going to be number one. I almost kind of expected that with the timing of the tweet, with what's going on right now. Kind of like what I did not expect, Mark, and I swear I actually almost cried when I saw this, was that his own teammates, the people I'm sure he spends, just as much time with as his own family, how he plays with them, he struggles with them, he goes through the whole season, with them. They get on social media and turn on him just like that. I couldn't. I was astounded at what
pathetic.
Even if these guys disagreed with what he said, don't you think that would be a call or a text message or a meeting? Hey, man, can we meet and talk about what you just said? To come turn on and embarrass him on social media like that?
Yes.
I mean, look, I didn't play, football past high school or anything, so I don't really know I know I'm rambling, so just if you don't mind, I got about 30 more seconds, and then you can let me have it.
You're fine.
I don't know how the family culture, how close teammates are and stuff on high school or college or NFL and stuff, but man, I got to say, I worked with some guys, of my career for years and years on end. Even if someone did something, and it happens almost every month, that I find distasteful or says something I find distasteful, I would never try to ruin their image. I would never go out of my way to make them bad people in the eyes of the world. I mean, just the ultimate betrayal like that. I can't believe it, and I don't even blame him, Drew Brees, for all of a sudden doing a complete 180. All the guy wants to do is be liked. And when your own brothers turn on you like that, seemingly out of nowhere, I mean, I honestly don't blame the guy for completely doing a 180 on what he really believes. I don't blame him for going after Trump for that, just because what would you do in that situation? Your own brothers not only turned against you, but embarrassed you on global media like that. Such a bad thing that happened to him.
I will say that if I'm Drew Brees, sure, I'm going to go out and play football for another year or two. I think he had already announced that this was going to be his final season. We'll see. But I certainly, unless some of those players would come out and apologize to me about how they handled that situation, they don't need to apologize about their stance. These are two different things. They need to apologize to me about what they did. Sure, I'll go out and play football with them. I'll do everything I possibly can to be a good teammate. But once my playing career is over, if nothing's been rectified there and made right by them reaching out to say, yeah, maybe I should have done. I think you're making a great point there, one that I failed to make during my several attempts at addressing this Drew Brees situation, is that you go to, if this guy is truly a friend to any, or just at least a teammate, you go to him first, not throw him under the bus in front of the world and attack him. It's pathetic what's going on. And the point that I made, and we had a couple race relations conversations here, and Drew Brees was brought up, and I said this flat out. I said, I am not here to say whether Drew Brees is right or wrong. This is what I'm stating. We're in this social media environment where, as you state, everyone says everyone says, oh, everybody should have their own opinion and their right to speak until they disagree with what I have to say. Then I'm going to tell them to shut up and that they're wrong. It's always that they're wrong. Not that I disagree with you. It's that you're wrong. There's a difference between saying, you know what, I disagree with you, but I respect your perspective, but I don't agree with you, versus you are wrong. And that's what I had an issue with. Drew Brees had every right to say, that rubs me the wrong way. Colin Kaepernick has the right to protest in whatever way he wants, but I don't like and don't support that manner in which he's choosing. And for the other side to clearly say, you know what, Drew, that's how we're going to do it. We don't agree with you. We're just telling you this is how we're going to do it. We don't agree with you. But we can't anymore in this country disagree and be okay with that and say, you know what, you don't get my perspective exactly, but at least you respect me as a person and know that I'm trying to do the right thing. And I'll say the same thing about you. I don't like the way you're going about this. I don't like your perspective. I don't agree with you, but I respect you as an individual, because in Drew Brees' case, this guy has been in the limelight. This guy became a prominent college quarterback in 1997. This guy's been in the limelight and been in the spotlight in America, in this culture, for 23 years. I would think during 23 years, at some point, somebody would have said, you know, this guy's a bad dude, or this guy said this, or he did this. But this guy's record is spotless for 23 years, and he says one thing, and everybody jumps on him and beats him to death. It's pathetic.
It's bad, man. I do my best to try and take hiatuses from. I mean, I don't even have Twitter. I don't have Instagram. I don't have any of that fancy millennial stuff. I have Facebook, but that's it. But unfortunately, the tide of hate has just spilled over everywhere. I mean, I saw the Jake Fromm thing, and at first I was just kind of reading it. I was like, I almost kind of thought it was funny because I don't know how many people actually bothered to look at the entire context, but I looked and found the entire conversation. All right, it didn't strike me as like he was actually being serious with that comment. You take the entire thing into context. And if you're at an age of mine or yours and stuff, you probably at some point in your past remember Uncle Huey, Uncle Bob, Uncle Jimmy, someone telling some sort of racial joke like that and making the entire living room erupt in laughter. With no ill intent behind it, no one actually feels that way. It's just funny. That's what the Jake Fromm thing struck me as. But that was even slightly it rubbed me in a different way, because that was a text message. That wasn't a tweet.
Yes.
That was a private conversation that Jake Fromm had absolutely no foresight or no ability to comprehend that this could ever at some point get spread out to the entire world.
What happened
to
privacy?
Now we have actually reached an age where we have to look over our shoulders 24/7 and make sure I don't have a bug in my room recording everything I'm saying right now. Now, some of the fault may be on Jake Fromm here for choosing a career path that has you in the spotlight 24/7. You know, it's like that whole Baker Mayfield thing where, you know, he's trying to say that we're focusing too much on his past with, you know, the police video and tackling. It's like, well, buddy, you chose a career field where we get to pick you apart in everything we can find, and you didn't make it that hard for us to find that. So part of it might be on Jake Fromm, just be like, you know what, this is what he signed up for. But a text message that's a private conversation, that's ridiculous.
Well,
I think he's getting hammered way too hard for that.
Well, so as I stated minutes ago, and I only had one statement to make about that situation, is that, you know, be careful and know who you were texting. That's the lesson for Jake Fromm, and that's the lesson for all of us.
It wasn't the person he was texting. It was a third person named like Angela or Ashley or something.
Yeah. So the person he was texting passed it on to somebody else. that then made it. Is that what you're telling me?
I don't know exactly how the third person got it, because when you read the entire text message after the comment about, the white supremacists and the guns and all that,
Elitist, I think was the term.
The person he was talking to said, "Bro, what?" And then kept talking. It's like almost like, ha ha ha, and just kind of laughed it off. And they continued talking. It wasn't like that person was so outraged they dropped it and then went and posted on the line. There's another text that shows where, like, Jake Fromm's sister or friend or something is texting this Angela, Ashley, whoever it is, begging her to take that text down, or because Jake Fromm's about to get fired. And it's just, you could see it in her words. She's salivating over it. How, no, this is her responsibility. She has to make sure that everyone knows this is what the truly kind of person he is. I don't know how she got a hold of the message. I don't know how any of that happened, but it wasn't the person Jake Fromm was texting. That's all I know. It is a third person that managed to leak it.
Yeah. It's horrible. It's horrible. He said a horrible thing to whatever degree. We can debate all night, but you're trying to put some reason to it as well, not just going with the norm of the day to say, he's the worst person in the world. He should never work in the NFL. Nothing. Yeah. Because there's no forgiveness in this country anymore. There is zero forgiveness.
No, absolutely not.
Everyone has to be perfect. And this perfection needs to go back to childhood, or at whatever point you picked up a phone for the first time. We all must be perfect. And God help us. If we don't all need forgiveness at some point, which I know from personal experience that I do, and really everyone does, but not everyone realizes that, because, again, in this social media climate, there are so many people out there that they're high and mighty and righteous, and they never do anything wrong, but they are just lording over everyone else to just pounce on anybody who makes any kind of mistake. Just can't wait.
Yeah. I was really hoping this wouldn't spill over into college football, but because about 2 years ago, college football managed to, for the most part, avoid the whole controversy with the kneeling stuff, because we never had our players on the field for the national anthem. I'm hoping they keep it that way once the season finally starts.
Yeah. I got another call coming in here recently, Don.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate it.
I just wanted to call and let you know, I'm still with you. I'm still a friend. All right. Any dark times.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. Woo! Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. This is Chris. How's it going?
Hey, Chris. I'm doing great. How are you?
All right. I'm sorry to hear about your what happened on social media. I really don't spend a lot of time on it, because a lot of the stuff that people pass around is just not good for the soul.
It's not good for the soul. You said it much better, Chris, and I will let you talk here in just a second, but I'm glad that you stated it the way you did, because I was about to cut in and say something, but you said it much better than I. It's not good for the soul. It's not. It really brings you down.
Yeah, I've said it a lot. I talk to my wife all the time and tell her, I think things were better before. We had everybody had the ability to kind of reach into everybody's life and see everything that you say, and for you to say everything to other people. Maybe people should just kind of have private conversations with each other. But I was listening to the past couple of calls you had, and I was thinking about how some of this has affected college football. And I remember during the Penn State scandal that they had with the, I forget what the guy's name was.
Jerry Sandusky.
Yeah, Sandusky, and the issue that was going around with that program and how they dealt with it at the time. And I thought about how, at least as far as I understand the situation, Joe Paterno was kind of getting involved in something that he didn't really do. It was, somebody that worked for him, but it was tarnishing his image, and they took down his statue. And when I think about that, I don't know which way to go with that, because you look at it and you say there's things that I'm in my mid to late 40s, and so there's things that when I was younger we didn't really think about, and we weren't so sensitive with what we said. Yeah. And we used to joke around, play around with people, and I think that kind of thing today is kind of frowned upon. And like you were saying, today you have to be perfect from the time you're a kid. Somebody, if you run for office today, somebody will go back and look and see, if you said something in high school or college or whatever else. And I'm wondering if this is going to be the new thing in football. Is this what it's going to be like? Because everybody has, I think, something in their past, and I guess it just depends on what the current climate is, as to how people react.
No, I think everything you say makes total sense. I really have no response for you because what you said, sir, makes total sense. I just wish there was just a little bit more acceptance, love, and forgiveness in the society. I believe totally in accountability. So I don't want anyone to get me wrong. I don't want people spewing hate of any kind. We're dealing with racism right now, but hate of any kind. There are limits to First Amendment rights. There are limits there, of course. If there is going to be true hate speech, or if there is a threatening way, things that could be harmful in a number of ways, yes, that's why the laws are in place the way they are. But man, we have gotten to a point where people are being banned from various social media platforms, and what they have said is not threatening to anyone. It's not hateful. It's not racist. It's just an opinion with a different perspective. And it's becoming what I consider dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous. I guess the way I feel is, like for example, this Drew Brees thing this week. I thought, the things I know about Drew Brees, from what I hear about him, he's a really good guy. But, and he said stuff that frustrated a lot of people. Okay, I get that. And I look at that, and I look at the response to that, and I think, on one hand, I'll say, for example, he was talking about what Kaepernick was doing. When Kaepernick got, basically, when he got released or whatever, and he was no longer playing, I used to tell my wife, I said, hey, look, he felt a conviction about a particular thing. He had the right to say what he wanted to say, and the NFL had the right, people had the right not to hire him on his team. It wasn't good for business. It was, he took a stand, and that's how he felt. And I feel with Drew, I feel as though he should stick, if he believes what he believes, he should stand for it. Yeah, you're going to have to pay a price for what you believe, but you got to stick with that price. I mean, if you believe it, go with it.
Well, the only thing I can say to that is it has the look of it as you have just described. That Drew Brees had a very strong conviction about where he stood on all that, and then he got just annihilated. I don't know that we can overstate how he was bombarded. And then the NFL runs a business. Let's not be confused here about the sanctity of the NFL, that they've just suddenly discovered that Colin Kaepernick is a great guy and is standing for the right thing, and that they want to do the right thing. No, the NFL runs a business. All they care about is money and drawing fans and keeping its fan base and trying to determine what is the social agenda, where do we need to stand on this topic so we continue to make money. Now, are there individuals within the NFL that are decent, people of character, that want to do the right thing? Absolutely. But the NFL, when you put it all together, it's a corporation looking to make money. So they're going to swing with public opinion. So there are no moral absolutes here. What was wrong or frowned upon 10 years ago, and if it changes, the NFL's changing. They're going to mirror public opinion because they don't want to lose money. They want to continue to make $1 zillion. So the NFL's not making any great moral stand. They're just bowing to public opinion because they want to keep everybody happy, or as many people as they can. The majority. Let's keep the majority happy because we want to continue to make money.
Yeah, it seems to be that way. I know a couple of years ago when, there was a bunch of NFL players that were caught on video beating their wives or girlfriends, and then they tried to have, they took a stand against that, with the penalties for the players going forward. And then, it became an issue where people were associating football players with violence towards women. And so when in Ohio State, I can't remember. When Urban Meyer got caught up with that, and once again, it was his assistant coach, and they fired him. I mean, he would be at Ohio State probably right now. He had health issues, but he may have been at Ohio State still had it not been for a climate like that. And it's the kind of thing where I just don't know where I stand on these type of things, because I look at people that I respected. Like, look at Bill Cosby. Would have never thought that all of that was going on. So I don't even know who's the good guy and who's not anymore. I mean, I know people have personas, but then sometimes they lift the curtain and you see all types of terrible things going on behind the scenes. So I don't even know where I stand on this right now. Just kind of feel like all I want to do is get back to just regular talking about football and
amen to that.
Just having fun. It's too much anymore.
I appreciate the phone call tonight. And I'm going to take another one here. A number of people are calling in, but thank you so much for the perspective. Thank you so much. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.
The call will start at the beat.
Who's on the line?
Oh, I can't believe I got through. Amazing. Bear with me. I'm a little nervous here.
Nope. Oh, hey. Man, you fooled me there for a second. I thought we had a first-timer here. This
but good morning, man.
Vaguely familiar from, sounds like some kind of celebrity, but I can't pin it down.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but believe it or not, I have a few opinions. You want to hear them?
When were you able to muster up an opinion on something? I didn't think that ever
happened. First I have a couple of questions. You're a traveling man, are you not? We follow you around on your channel. Half your shows are in a hotel room. You're a traveling man. You spend a lot of any time overseas, Mark Rogers?
I haven't. I
no,
have
okay.
not.
You know what is widely considered around the world to be one of the greatest signs of respect you can possibly give?
I know what you're going to say.
Kneel.
Sure.
Yeah. Whose idea was it for Colin Kaepernick to kneel?
This was drilled into my head the other day. It was Special Armed Forces individual, I believe.
Right. So who's right? That guy or the Army guy that called in a few minutes ago that said that he shouldn't do it?
That's where I believe, and I will stick to my opinion on this, is that as it states on the screen, J Love T is asking me, so you are saying Drew Brees wasn't wrong, Mr. Rogers. What I'm saying is that I am not saying that Drew Brees was right. I'm not saying that he was wrong. I think we have too many people in this society now casting stones at people saying, this is right, this is wrong. You know, the only measurement of right and wrong that I have in my life is a Bible. That tells me murder, wrong, rape, wrong. We can go on down
What
the
about
line.
slavery?
Wrong.
What does it tell you about what does it tell you about slavery?
Wrong. Absolutely wrong.
No, it does not.
Well, if you really read the context of the Bible, we're not going to dive deep into that.
And there you go. There you go. See, 200 years ago, the Bible said slavery was fine because that's how people interpreted it. So using the Bible is not a very good way to go, in my opinion, because it changes with the breeze like everything else. It's no better than anything else.
Well,
right?
Again,
the Bible was used to justify slavery. I mean, you're not debating that, are you?
We are all going to have a moral compass of some sort, whether we make it up or we look to something else to tell us what is right or wrong, correct?
Right.
You're basically going by your heart, correct?
Going back to what?
Your heart is telling you what's right and wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
I'm just establishing that each one of us make a determination what we lean on is right and wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The problem is determining.
I would hope
the problem is determining what's right or wrong for someone else. That's the problem.
I would hope that you and I think I can make this comment, and I hope everybody in the chat, that we can all agree that slavery is wrong beyond description.
We all agree that today. Yes. But we've spent less time agreeing that it's wrong than we spent agreeing it was right.
So you're saying 160 years ago, yes, there were people, and even more recent than that, of course, but I'm talking about the law that was established, of course, in 1861 or whenever it was, 5. Yes, so we'll make that the dividing line.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, now, why? Okay. Who's sitting in their living room on Sunday afternoon watching the Falcons game? Well, I'm saying the Falcons game comes on.
Yes.
These people are not standing up in their living room. They're laying on the couch with their hand down their pants.
Yep.
While the national anthem plays. I mean, that's just what they're doing.
Yep.
There's people in the comment section right now, I'm sure, going, "Oh, I stand up every time it plays." No, you don't. You're lying. You don't.
I don't.
I know people personally who are all about this kneeling thing. I can't believe somebody would do that. You have to stand and blah, blah, blah. I've been at 4th of July parties with these people. The national anthem comes on. They don't bat an eye. They continue eating their hot wings or whatever it was they were doing. This idea that somehow, first of all, it didn't have anything to do with Colin Kaepernick is the one that's protesting. Why do we get to tell Colin Kaepernick what he's disrespecting? It has nothing to do with the flag in his mind. I would not kneel. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do it. But I don't understand. The whole uproar over it makes no sense to me. It doesn't get any more peaceful than that. Yeah, I know. But other people will. But don't worry. But I don't understand why it has gotten to that point with the kneeling. That whole kneeling thing never made any sense to me. But let's move on to Jake Fromm.
Can I jump in on that one, Lou? Just because I want to set the record straight of where I stand. So I will plead ignorance in regards to Colin Kaepernick starts this, whatever it was, 5 years ago. My initial reaction was, like many Americans, what's this dude doing? He's dishonoring the flag. I was ignorant not to the cause, but why does he need to do that? He's got all sorts of different platforms that he can do that. Why can't he just respect the flag, etc.? I've had people explain to me, and I've done some reading, like you have outlined, and I'm okay with him doing what he has done in the past. I have come around to that based on gaining information and insight into the situation. My initial response changed. What I am defending is Drew Brees' right to say that that bothers him. He doesn't say that he's stated he has every right to do it. I just don't support him doing that. And I'm just defending
I
Drew
agree
Brees.
with that. I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, telling Colin Kaepernick he can't kneel would be just as stupid as telling Drew Brees that he has to. I mean, that's crazy.
I just think
that Drew Brees doesn't have to kneel.
I just think that there should be a little bit more room for disagreement in this country to say, you know what, Lou, I respect you as an individual. You're a good guy. I don't really understand why you think that about that, but, you know, I'm okay with it, and you're never going to convince me, but, you know, we're still good. And you don't agree with me on that, but you still think I'm a good guy, and I try to do the right things, and I want freedom in this country for everyone, and equality and justice and all those things, and you know that, but you don't agree with me on that, but we're still good. I would like to see more of that.
Yeah, that's a lost art, like they say, as it were.
Okay, Jake Fromm.
Man, can you believe the nerve? Can you believe the nerve of somebody releasing someone's racist text messages? Oh my God, this girl ought to be drawn and quartered and run out of town. Is she in jail yet? I'd be surprised if she's not. I honestly can't. This girl here, this is probably the worst thing I've ever seen. I cannot believe this girl did that. Never mind what Fromm said. Hey, who told on Jerry Sandusky? They ought to be run out of town too.
Whoa. Well, we're talking about two different things there.
You shouldn't tell. Well, somebody else brought that up, but you shouldn't go around telling on people.
We're talking about something that actually harmed individuals, young individuals versus
mindsets and ideologies have been harming individuals in this country for 400 years. The type of mindset and ideology that would lead you to send a text message saying that only elite whites should have guns. That's a horrible type of ideology.
Absolutely. I'm not even going to try to describe what an ignorant and hateful and despicable type comment that is.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think Jake Fromm is a racist in that, like, he hates every black person he sees and all that. It's not that. And I think trying to really understand the root issue is hard because it's not as simple as this person hates black guys and okay, this person doesn't. I think there's a lot of area in the middle, and that's where you start getting into things that really set people off, like institutional racism and all this kind of stuff that goes on. But but one thing I keep hearing this. Why do they have to ruin this guy's life over a text message? How is his life? Can someone tell me what price Fromm has paid?
I don't know.
This idea, his life is ruined. His life is how? How is it? Oh, everybody acts like they've never done it. No one acts like they've never done or said anything. But when you do or say something stupid or otherwise, whatever, illegal, racist, whatever it is, there's consequences. Those consequences vary based on what you did or whatever. But this ruining Jake Fromm's, how is his life ruined? I can't. I don't see any. What has happened to him?
Lou, I do have an issue with if this person across the street from me hates my guts. Let's say this individual hates my guts, and he talks to his wife about it every day. That Mark Rogers, that son of a bitch, I hate that guy. But I don't see any actions or display of that. The guy says, "Hey, neighbor, good morning," every morning, and he has my driveway shoveled. Whatever he does, he's a fine neighbor, and I have no idea how he really feels about me. Do I believe that his conversations with his wife should be made public? That he is a hateful person toward me? I think there should be some level of privacy. Now, whether that's on a text message, you're running the risk that you're trusting the person that you're texting. So that's a lesson to everyone. I'm sure if my text messages were out there, I guarantee that there would be, and I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but nobody would find in the history of my text messages anything that could be in any way deemed to be racist. But would there be a lot of stupid stuff on there that I wouldn't want people? Were there comments about how, you could imagine, would I want the world to see my text messages for the history of my life? No.
Yeah, well, yeah, I get that. Nobody would, yeah. And I'm not saying what she did was right and that people should be in the business of running around trying to catch people saying stuff so they can release the messages and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the people who, it's a lot of excuse makers that don't want to put, they don't want to talk about what Fromm said at all. It's all what she did. And,
well, no, I don't agree with that.
I mean, we have to. You said it earlier. If he wouldn't have said it, it wouldn't have mattered what messages she released. And what he said is, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, what he said is not. I mean, it's not like it's the worst thing in the world. And let's be honest, there's never a good time for something like that to come out. But this was the absolute worst time. Yeah. I mean, it couldn't have been a worse time.
Sure. Oh.
And so he's catching more heat now than he would even under normal circumstances. But
is that the reason?
I don't know. I mean, I think the best thing I've seen on all of this, and I haven't seen it all, but the Malcolm Jenkins, I guess it was an Instagram video or something he made to Drew Brees, and Drew Brees had talked about his grandparents being in the military and how much that meant to him, and they came back from the war. Malcolm Jenkins got on and he said, my grandparents were in that same war. They came back here. They weren't treated like your grandparents were. My experiences are totally different than yours. And you sort of brought this up earlier too, but everybody on all sides of all these issues just need to do a better job of trying to think about the other person's perspective. Just because Colin Kaepernick kneels during the national anthem to protest police brutality does not mean he's a communist who hates America and the flag.
Absolutely.
The flag had nothing to do with it to Colin Kaepernick. I understand that maybe to some veterans, anything you do to the flag other than stare at it in amazement is considered rude. I can get that. But, to Colin Kaepernick, I guess that wasn't the case. And I don't think he intended, or in fact, I know he didn't and said it. It wasn't intended towards the flag or the country. He was just trying to draw attention. He thought that was the best way to do it. The veteran came to him and said, well, kneeling, do this. So that's what he did. But it's just a mess. And the whole thing about, somebody else said, I was hoping this wouldn't creep into college football. I mean, the whole close your eyes thing and pretend all this doesn't exist just ain't working. I mean, people have got to open their eyes and confront these things head on, and no one likes to talk about it. And no matter which side you come down on, you're going to make a certain percentage of people on the other side mad. But I just like the thing you and Alonzo did. I mean, there just needs to be more. There just needs to be more things like that. I mean, we can't just keep our head in the sand. I mean, is it my fault that someone's great-great-great-great-grandfather was a slave? No, it's not. But they were. And, if it was illegal for white people to learn to read for 300 years, as a people, white people would be worse off today than they are. Yeah. They just would. There's 117 billionaires in this country. 5 of them are black. I mean, some of this stuff is real. No one alive right now owned a slave. We all know that. We all get that. But there is some residual effect. I mean, you can't subjugate an entire race of people for 300 years and expect it to go away in 100 years. It's going to take time.
And I said to Zoe the other day, and I said to Zoe the other day, I said, I want to state this the correct way, because in no way do I think that there's something inherently existent in a black male that makes them more apt or worse of a person than any other demographic category to go out and commit more crimes. But we know that they do, and it's not anything inherent to them that makes them a bad person. It's environment. It's more broken homes based on everything that you just stated, a worse economic situation. Because I know where my meals are coming for, I could lose my job tomorrow and I'll be fine for the next couple of years. I'm not in a situation of desperation. So I can sit here high and mighty and self-righteous and say, I would never do this. I would never steal. I would never do this. I don't know. I'm not in that desperate situation. So what can we do as a society to educate and keep these homes together? And it's just a complex problem in the black community.
The more it's like the onion analogy, you start peeling it away and there's just more and more layers. Like, okay, fine, police brutality. Okay, but then, well, what about broken homes? Okay, well, what about the economic situation, in inner cities? What about black on black crime? That's a problem too. There's so many layers to it, and we really don't seem to have the answers for any of them. But, I do think, like, it sounds cheesy because they say it on the news, but like whatever we need to have a national conversation or whatever. I do think talking about it and getting it out in the open and both sides admitting what some of the issues are is, even if it's a small step, some kind of step in the right direction. We can't just pretend. The people that say, well, Obama was president, so if a black man would become president, there's no way there's any racism here. That's just crazy. There's a woman CEO somewhere. Does that mean there's no gender gap? Of course it doesn't. There are still some areas where women lag behind. Sure. Just because some lady runs some company somewhere doesn't mean that there's no such thing as gender discrimination anywhere in America. Of course there is. And the same thing is true. Yes, Obama became president. It's great. Still have some issues, though. Let's try to work through them. Anyway, college football starting on time. That's good news. Who do you think Georgia's going to play in the playoffs?
Well, I picked your boys to win the national championship last year. They didn't pull through for me.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot, buddy.
I think I did that. And I forgot they let that Justin Fields guy go.
Oh, God. Best quarterback we ever had.
They wouldn't let him throw the ball when they got him in the games, though. They wouldn't take a risk with him.
This is where I'm supposed to say, well, I wonder why. I don't want to stir that hornet's nest. God bless Jamie Newman, and God bless Mark Rogers.
Thank you, Lou. We appreciate it. There might be somebody out there who doesn't know who just called, but that's Uncle Lou. LouTube, Uncle Lou. Search either one here on YouTube. And I did catch, I did not have the time to sit through like the full 30 or 32 minutes of Jake Fromm rant the other day, so I had to try to pick and choose and make my way through it. But it was entertaining, as it always is, with Uncle Lou. So we appreciate the phone call. It's always a great conversation, whether it be football or otherwise, with Uncle Lou. All right, boy, I don't know where we go from here. We've been on for 2 hours and 9 minutes. I still wanted to get to this Iowa strength and conditioning coach, Chris Doyle situation, and the Utah defensive coordinator, Morgan Scalley, who has been suspended both regarding race relations. For the Iowa strength and conditioning coach, it had to do with just complaints about the culture, complaints about the way he treated black athletes. I don't know that there were any specifics in the article I looked at. More just complaints about, in general, giving preference to the white athlete and just making a lot of black athletes and confronting them in very harsh ways. With the Utah defensive coordinator, it was a statement that he made directly to an athlete, and then he was confronted by that athlete 5 years later, as I understand it from the article, during that athlete's senior year. and then this all comes to light. And what I hate about all this is we're talking about incidents in 2007 and 8 with the Iowa coach and with an incident in 2013 with the Utah coach. So here we are in 2020. I have not been handled in such a way that I felt as though I needed to hold somebody accountable to that degree. So I cannot relate to having a sense of fear to bring that to light, and then maybe coming to a place 5 and 10 years later where I felt as though, okay, I can now make this known, and I need to hold this person accountable. So I am not stating this from an ignorant place as I would be if I said that. Like, why don't you call them out right at the time that it happened? But at the same time, people that are being held accountable for tweets and comments made 12 and 13 years ago.
Start at the beat.
Mark Rogers. Oh, they let me go. Didn't want to talk. So that is what has happened in those two situations. I did want to put in context, again, assuming that Dabo Swinney is telling the truth, he's honest, and he is being forthright about the situation concerning his assistant coach, that this particular coach had the N-word yelled at him during a drill and then used it as an example or yelled it back to the player. Dabo Swinney made it clear that's not acceptable here to state it in any such way, even though you are repeating what was stated to you. Do not state the word. So that was clear, but it should be placed into context, and certainly was by Dabo Swinney, that it's one thing just to, I'm attacking this player and using the N-word versus I'm repeating what he just said to me. Those are two entirely different situations, still holding the coach accountable. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is NBA fan.
NBA fan, how are you?
Good, how are you?
What do you have for us tonight?
Okay. So, I had a question for you about, do you think that a team like Cincinnati in the Power 5 could consistently, you know what I'm saying, consistently have a chance to compete like on a national scale if, you know what I'm saying, they're like, if they, you think they can get the talent to keep like that? I brought this up because they just got this quarterback who's like top 50 rated on the top 7, and then it seems like they pick their Power 5 competition really well, to where if everything lines up, it seems like they should have the top end talent at key spots to actually compete, kind of good on a national level if they got a chance.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm shocked, NBA fan. You're asking me an actual football question. We're here for political debate. I don't know anything about football. I'm just kidding. Just kidding, NBA fan. I love the question. I want to talk football. That's why I'm here. Let's talk football. Thank you. Love it. Cincinnati competing on the national level. So where are we placing Cincinnati? In the Big Ten?
No, I'm saying from their conference. I think it's like a more linear path, right? Just based off their schedule. If they can garner, if they have the top end talent that can garner the buzz and everything like that, and then they have the record, they have the key Power 5, and then they have the key 5 teams. Do you think that that record and everything can coalesce to a point where they're respected enough by the national media, but actually have the talent to actually compete?
Okay. So you're asking me if this season, if Cincinnati beats, I should pull up the schedule. Do you know offhand who they play in the Power 5?
Yeah, I got it. They have Nebraska.
Oh, that's right.
They seem to get a lot of really decent height.
They go to Nebraska.
Right. Get high in the season.
Sure. Last year, of course, they beat Cincinnati, or they beat UCLA at home, and they got clocked by Ohio State at the Horseshoe. So they've got a date in Nebraska. Now, it's certainly going to work in their favor if Nebraska turns around and has a quality season in the Big Ten, and let's say goes 8-4. So again, I really like where you're going with this, but I want to make sure that I understand your question is that we keep Cincinnati in the American Conference. They play out this season, and you're asking how they should be evaluated if they go undefeated?
Right.
Well, the American Conference, outside of Clemson, to make a comparison with the ACC, I expect the ACC to be better than it's been for the last couple of years. But the American Conference, if you extract Clemson, which of course you can't, but if we did, those two leagues have been pretty comparable the last couple of years.
Right. I see at least 2 great teams on their schedule. Got Memphis and Houston will both be like top 20 teams around the time that they play. Then they can begin in the conference championship, so that'd be another top ranked team. And then we don't even know how UCF is playing. They might be a ranked team again this year too, so they can have a decent resume.
UCF has a date with North Carolina, which would certainly help the cause. Because these teams are going to get judged not only by the teams that they beat and lose to, but that connection of Cincinnati beat UCF and UCF beat North Carolina, for example.
Right. And then if they're competitive with Clemson,
I think that the American Conference has reached a place where they have 5 or 6 teams that are in that 30 to 50 in the nation range. And they're always difficult, and I struggle with this as well, especially as we get to the end of the season, ranking these teams. Because you take a Cincinnati, and they did what? They beat Virginia Tech by, no, that was 2 years ago. Last year they killed Boston College in a bowl game. That was their bowl game, correct? Yeah, it was. But 2 years ago, they played a really close game against a Virginia Tech team that was 6-7 in the bowl game. So it's just a tough evaluation to rank them in the top 25. It is for me, because they're always going to have a better record. You're going to see an 11-2 type Cincinnati team be ranked right around some 8-5 teams from the SEC or 9-4 teams from the Big Ten, around that 20th ranking. And as long as they're losing a game, they're never going to push higher than 12 or 13 in the country. And we really have nothing to go on for Cincinnati other than they went to Ohio State and got obliterated. Now, that didn't look good because although Ohio State was dominating just about everybody they played, there were teams on Ohio State's schedule that played them tougher than Cincinnati did that weren't great teams. Take Michigan State, for example.
Yeah. They played them tough for like a quarter and a half.
Yeah, it was like 34-10. You know, to Cincinnati's defense, Ohio State did crush Indiana. That went 8-4. Was a decent bowl team. So
I don't know. I just think it's interesting because they're starting to be like, they're starting to get to the level where it's not just like, it's not too daunting of a thought that a kid might choose Cincinnati over Michigan State or like Kentucky right now. And if they could consistently get that tier 2 talent and then develop it on top of having like a high leverage player at the most important position, I just think they could compete at a greater level than we've seen group of 5 teams compete as of recent, besides that 1 year for UCF. Yeah. And then I had a thought about Georgia, right?
Okay.
It seems to me like they're stuck. It's like they're in a like 2014 Michigan, like Harbaugh like right once Harbaugh got to Michigan, Iowa State, but it's just lasted longer. They, you know what I'm saying? They got like Michigan at that point. They got like Rashawn Gary, Jabril Peppers, Donovan Peoples-Jones. They had all the 5 stars at all the positions that they want, and they still ran this like 2009-esque type offense, and they never really won at the clip that they should have won considering the talent. Georgia just to a higher extent, but I think they balanced out more because they played in a more talented conference, but like recruiting rankings wise. But do you think that if Georgia keeps, you know what I'm saying, performing at the level they are, considering the talent, like they're by far in a way the most talented team in the country, like based off straight recruiting rankings, but they always seem to underachieve. Do you think that there'd be a point, like sometime in the close future, where kids see that there isn't really that much of a thing to go to Georgia from like every position because they're not really developing anybody like out of first round other than tackles, and they're not winning at the highest level either. So people are going to start giving off the places that can offer one of the two or both.
I think you make a good point that Kirby Smart has done a remarkable job recruiting. They're developing players. If your criteria is the NFL, then they're developing them well enough to flood the NFL draft. And we're going to have a better read on that in the next couple years because, of course, he's only had the 4 seasons and really had this juggernaut working for the last, let's say, 3 recruiting cycles. But I would think that there would be a residual effect to him continuing to lose big games in key situations and fielding really good teams, but going 10-2, 11-1, and not getting over the hump, that at some point there would be still elite athletes coming into his program, but not at the same rate, because many of them would say, why don't we go to Alabama or Clemson or wherever, or Ohio State, Ryan Day seems to develop, especially skill position players, for the next level and to win championships here. And he's certainly not known, and I think there is justification to a certain extent as a great in-game coach, that at some point, yeah, the talent being arguably the best in the nation and certainly in the top 3 has to be. I'm currently, when people have knocked Kirby Smart and Georgia's lack of winning the big game, I've kind of held that at bay and disclaimed it and defended it because it's only been 3 years that they've been at that level. And of course, when you come within inches of winning a national championship, sure, they didn't get it done, but they were as good as Alabama on the field that night. And then they blow a 2-touchdown lead in the SEC championship game the next year that would have vaulted them into the playoff. And then this past year, they just were never quite the team that they should have been. So your initial statement was a really good one about, okay, what happens to this offense? New quarterback, dual threat guy, different than Jake Fromm as a runner, and new offensive philosophy we hear, and coordinator. So what are we going to see? Are we going to see this LSU transformation take place? Or are we going to see more of the same?
Michigan transformation take place, or Michigan fiasco take place. Does this sound like a lot of pre-20? Doesn't this sound like last season, off-season hype about Michigan?
Yes, it does.
Like,
yep.
So, and I want to hear like your take on their like development so far from what you've seen. Like, so I don't think it's debatable that their greatest developed position is offensive tackle.
at Georgia. Yes.
Yeah. And their offensive tackle coach or their offensive line coach just left.
Yep.
Right? So at a certain point, like, and they're not like, you can't really go to any other, like, individual position group and they're recruiting or they're developing they're recruiting at a premier level everywhere, but they're not developing at that same clip that they're recruiting at anywhere across the board. Do you see anywhere besides tackle where they're doing that?
Well, I do think offensive line coaches are the most important position coach in football. I do think that's the case. Well, running back, I don't know if that's just, those guys come in, plug and play. They're just so good. But that's obviously connected to the offensive line. They go hand in hand. But of course,
DeAndre Swift, he underperformed last year.
I'm sorry,
like,
what?
As a whole, DeAndre Swift, he kind of underperformed last year. He wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was like a borderline top 5 back, but with everything skewing in his favor like it does in the Georgia run offense, it was kind of underwhelming. Do you agree?
Did he underperform? He averaged like 6.5 yards a carry, I believe.
I thought he averaged 5.
Their defense is loaded this year. They've got almost everybody coming back. Hey, NBA fan, I'm going to take this other call coming in. Thanks for the call. All right.
The call will start at the beep.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's George, Mark.
Don't we put a quota on these shows?
No, there's no quota. We're going to handle that in a different show. But I just had the greatest thought ever.
The greatest thought ever. And we only have 53 on the line, George. It's unfortunate.
All right, listen. Florida beats Tennessee by 1 point because they went for 2 in double overtime. That would be a happy Saturday, wouldn't it? We'd all be sitting there going, ah! And then Florida beats Georgia by 1 in overtime. And then Florida beats Alabama by 1 in overtime. And then you see how that goes? Because we have the team. We have the players. Oh, my God. I can't believe we have Kyle Trent. We have the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback.
When you first started down this trail, George, I thought you were trying to contrive some way to get 3 teams from the same division in the playoff. That's what I thought you were working toward.
No, it's just come on. We got LSU, we got Auburn, we got Alabama. Don't forget Alabama. We got Georgia, Tennessee. People don't even talk about them. And then Florida sitting there over on the side. My God, what a conference. I love the SEC. We should let everybody join the SEC that wants to. Come on in.
This is why you called, because you dreamt up that Florida could beat Tennessee by 1 and could beat Georgia by 1.
I love Tennessee. I would love so much to beat them by 1 in double overtime. That's exciting. That makes me happy. And then our players would go on and beat Georgia because they'd be happy too. I'm so happy. Oh, my God. Look at our team is incredible. It's just incredible.
George, there is, in fact, a 1-call quota unless you do, in fact, call with the greatest idea ever.
Right. And plus, I just wanted to get over telling everybody, please don't believe what you see on TV. I swear to God, it's not true.
George, you can't tell me that you've got the greatest idea ever and then come up with, like, the type idea that any knucklehead would have about 1,307 times per day.
It's only the greatest idea ever if it probably might happen. You know, Florida might do that, what I just said. And somehow you get there to the end of the year and Florida's in the playoffs. Now that's exciting.
All right, George. We're going to let you go. Thank you so much.
Ohio State. I want to play Ohio State. We have Kyle Trask. I don't care what anybody says.
I am going to call you in 1 minute. Okay. All right. Okay, we've done enough work for the night, folks. I believe that's it. I'm sorry that I didn't get to all these fine comments on the chat. Thank you, everyone, for calling, for commenting. Nice little appearance from Uncle Lou. George had to call twice because he had the greatest idea in the history of mankind. The second time because Florida was going to beat who was it? Tennessee by 1 point. Woo! All right, what a show. All right, we're going to be back tomorrow night, Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, Ohio State. I can't even think anymore. Florida State live on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. We'll see you then. Oh, Mr. Rogers is the source of college football rivalry and strife online. Oh boy, I don't know if that's a compliment or what it is. When in doubt, you take it as such. We'll see you next time.